Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Twisted Realms. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Twisted Realms. Now, this may look a little bit different because I don't have one game in front of me, not even two, but I have 3 games in front of me. So, Twisted Realms is going to be brought to you by Inside Up Games. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video, and you can check out the current Kickstarter link down below for their campaign that is now live. Now, that being said, before I explain why I have 3 games, just know that any games that you see me covering in this video are all prototype copies, so all the rules, components, and things like that are subject to change, and I do know that they're making a few different enhancements based on what I've already seen in front of me, so be sure to check that out. Now, Twisted Realms is going to be a series of games where we have here Tug of Roar, Crypts and Tricks, and Thieves of Eldris, and they're all going to be smaller box games that are also able to be made portable, but they pack quite a bit of a punch and have a bit of strategy added to them, and especially depending on the number of players, the different games could be very, very good depending on who you're with. So that being said, we are going to take a look at the Twisted Realms series by Inside Up Games, starting off with Tug of Roar, and then I'll go over the others. Now, this is Tug of War, and before we get started, one thing I definitely want to note is, due to the way my lighting is with this table, you can't see how these cards are actually very, very shiny and gold leafed. They say Tug of War on them, so they're actually quite bright depending on the lighting that you're in. So I just wanted to show that off because a lot of these do appear dark, but these are all actually those gold leaf cards, so they are quite bright depending on the lighting that you are able to look at it in. Now, that being said, this is Tug of Roar. Tug of Roar is going to be a game specifically for 2 players, where you are working within these different faction abilities with the cards available over 3 different phases, trying to win over your opponent by having the most flags in play. Now, this is going to be an area where you are going to battle for each of these specific terrains at the end of the game, and I'm going to walk you through how you are going to build up to that, but just know that you don't necessarily need to win every battle, you just need to win the majority of flags at the end of the game, and that's how you would win. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose either the Lycarans, which are going to be the wolves and the rangers, or you're going to play as the Elkyr, which are going to be the elk-type people and the paladins. Now, there's no real difference between rangers and paladins, that's just the different names for the different sides, because everything in here is named after the classic archetypes and things like that. But that being said, you do have slightly asymmetric abilities, where you'll be able to win ties depending on the different phase that you're in, depending on which faction you chose. Now, what you currently see here is mid-deploy phase. So we are mid through phase 2, but during phase 1 is when players are going to be gaining these different cards. Now, during phase 1, players are going to be given options of 2 groups of 3 cards. So, for example, I'm just going to use my deck here to show you, but you would be presented with cards of 3 and 3, and then each player would choose one of the cards from their hand to be able to bid for which one that they want. So depending on which set of these cards they want, they'll bid with their different champions, and that would also remove it from play for future rounds, because these are going to matter in every round that you're playing. Now, if there isn't much of a choice, you may choose to go for the earlier numbers, such as the 0 and the 1, but as things start to combo with the other cards that you want to choose, you may start to choose to pay for something higher, because when you are choosing all of these cards, there are a lot of things to factor. There's the number that they're going to provide, which is going to be the power in the region that they're in. There's also the amount of fear that they provide, which is going to help you on this track here when it's played. But another thing that players are trying to do is play 2 of the same type, because if you see here, these are both warlocks. Then when you are in the battle phase, you would be able to, in the skirmish phase, you would be able to activate this ability because they are both the same type, and then you would be able to use that against your opponent in that particular battle. So that's a reason why you might want to start working toward similar classes so that you're able to get those abilities, but also higher numbers can be very, very important. So during the first phase, players are going to do this 4 times, giving them a total of 12 cards. So that's how these cards were obtained by our ranger player over here. So I'm just going to shuffle them back in, because during the next phase, which is going to be your deploy phase, you're going to first check all of those cards that you've purchased, because you really want to go through and make sure you have them memorized and you're very strategic about what cards you're choosing to play. But once you have that shuffled, you will then draw 3 cards, cards, and then you'll have a choice of being able to deploy cards onto your side of the board. So each player can only play their units to their side of the battlefield, but this being said, you can probably tell that we have done this 3 times. We are in the 4th turn of the deploy phase, and this player here would be able to look at their hand and choose what they want to play out here. Now you can see that they have 2 rogues, and as I said, when you have 2 cards together, they will activate. So that's a really great thing to do, to be able to put both of these rogues together. But another thing to consider is that they do have the fear that they would change. So for example, we will take this rogue here, and let's say we decide to play them over to this area, leaving this area open for our other rogue. When we do so, we are going to raise the fear by 3, pushing it toward the elk player. So we would go 1, 2, 3, and then we would proceed onto their turn. Now, because we are the ranger wolf player, at the end of this turn, always at the end of the wolf's turn during this phase, you would check this chart. So currently where it is at -1, then the wolf player would be able to take one of these -1 tokens and put it in any of the areas that they choose for the other player. This would then get reset back to the center, but this is where the wolf player has an advantage because they are able to always check at the end of their turn and hopefully push that forward. The advantage for the paladin player is that during the first phase, if any of their champions tie when bidding, they will always win the ties. Now, as you may have noticed, this player also chose to play a card face down. You can play up to 3 cards face down during this phase, but the only thing about that is that if it is one that would give you any fear points, you aren't able to add that because when they are played face down, it does not affect this track. Additionally, there is another class that has an ability here, Morph, for the druid, that activates during this phase. So this ability says you may move, replace, or discard one of your previously played cards. So this is a way for you to be able to manipulate the play area a bit. For example, if we wanted to move this cleric, we would be able to move them, but we would also be able to replace something that we've already played and discard that card instead. Additionally, you can use it to just discard one from your own play area, but usually that's the least used instance of that. So that is Druid and Morph, and when you would be using that ability, and that is the only one as well that does not need to be a pair. So this will trigger when you play that card immediately, whereas when you are in the skirmish phase, cards must be paired with the same card of their type to be able to activate that ability, and you can see that by this symbol here, whereas this one does not, and it has a split symbol for it. Now, another thing to look at is our barbarians. Barbarians just provide brute strength, so they have no actual ability, but they typically provide a lot of fear points and strength, so that's something that players are able to do, especially when they want to pair them up with their druids. Now, just to go over the different other class abilities, your warlocks are going to give you a lot of flexibility. So when you have 2 warlocks together, then the location may be resolved 1 versus 1 with you choosing the combatants. So if we did have 2 warlocks here, you may choose to pair them up together with a 1 and a 4, because then you could choose to battle with only your 4 and choose who you want to battle with once all of these are revealed. So that's what our warlock would do. Additionally, the bard is add 2 to the value of your captain played at this location. I'm going to come back to what that means when we talk about the skirmish phase, but moving on to our rogue over here, if you do have 2 rogues that are together, you're able to do a sneak ability, which is drawing an ambush token and adding its value to your attack strength. Now again, this wouldn't be until the skirmish phase, but that is when you would take one of these tokens and it would be added to the strength for this particular area. Now, clerics also affect the final phase of the game, so both clerics and bards I'm going to explain in more detail after I explain a little bit more about the board and what you're doing during this deployment phase. So another thing that you are doing during this deployment phase is that you are trying to play 2 cards to every region before the other player. So in this example where if it was like this player had played both of these to this region before I was able to, so then they would flip this token. Now when you do so, you are able to draw a card, meaning that your hand size increases, and you're also getting one of the cards that players were not able to gain at the beginning of the game, giving you a little bit of hidden knowledge. Now, you will gain that card and you'll have that flexibility added, but you'll also flip this token to the +2 side, which is going to matter during the skirmish phase. Now, players are going to go back and forth throughout this deployment phase, trying to play what they can, using their druids to morph around and see what they can maneuver, and also taking those negative points to their locations if the fear happens. So there's a whole bunch of things to juggle, but then after that, we are going to move on to the skirmish phase. Now, I did fast forward the board a little bit, so you're going to see us ahead in that phase now, but we're going to take a look at what skirmish looks like. Now, during the skirmish phase, players are going to resolve cards from starting with this area, working all the way down to this area. And the mat even helps you and shows you where to start off resolving, but I am only going to resolve this center one to show off both the cleric and the bard abilities for the sake of the preview. So just know that when you are normally playing this, you would resolve this area first, and then this one, and then playing forward, but right now I am only going to skip ahead and resolve this one. So normally when this would happen, these cards would actually be revealed, so that would have already happened, and there would be tokens placed out for who won these different areas. So again, I'm skipping these just to be clear. Now, when you have a specific area, as I said, if you have 2 of the same, you are able to trigger that ability. So the ability for the clerics is add a 3rd card to this location if its value matches one of the 2 clerics. So that's why we figured to add so much power to a specific area that here I have my druid, which is a 3, so we are able to add that with its combat strength to this particular area. So now when this is happening, players are also going to use their champion cards left available to fight over this +2 token. Now for this player, it's really good for them if they are able to try to get ahead. It's kind of a battle of wits right now with the bard ability. So I'm just going to have them use their 9 because why not? And we'll see what that does for us. Now, the bard's abilities is that they're going to be able to add 2 to the value of their captain played in this location, meaning that if this player wants the +2, they would be able to play even a 7 and be able to win because right now wolves would beat the ties. So we are going to have this player look at what they have. Oh, sorry, the wolves would actually win the ties. So the paladins would need to play at least an 8 to be able to beat this 9 if they assumed that this player is probably playing their 9, which I think they would. So knowing that they have their bard ability and that they would be able to have 10, but this player would not, they would choose to play this, and that would give them the +2 token for this particular battle. So this is going to go over to this player, and then you are going to add up your different combat strengths. So now, taking a look, you are going to add up your strength plus any applicable tokens you may have. So over here, our rogues do have their ambush tokens, but that would have been for this battle over here. So our paladins over here have a total of 4 + 3 is 7, +2 is 9. But the team over here has 3 + 4, which is 7, +3, which is 10. So they actually have 1 more combat strength, meaning that this team is going to win. Now, when you win, you're able to take your flag and place it down to show that you won that area. But depending on the number of points that you are able to win by, could mean that you have 2 flags. So you see here that there's a 3+, meaning that if you win by at least 3 points more than the opponent for the different combat strengths, then you would actually be able to place a 2nd token instead. So this is where certain areas can get you ahead, that if you have 2 tokens in some places, it's okay for you to lose 1 token to your opponent in other areas. Now finally, another thing that would have affected this are these negative tokens that were applied during the fear stage. So any of those would also affect the total value when they're in that particular area. Now, another thing to note is there's actually a travel-friendly version. So a lot of this you are able to just take with you and play, and the only thing that may be cumbersome is the map for you and the different tracks. So there are these cards where you are able to play these out and simulate the different areas of the maps that you need, and then you are able to have a little on-the-go pocket-sized version of Tug of Roar. Alright, and now we're going to take a look at Thieves of Eldris. Now, Thieves of Eldris is going to be the game in the series that can change the most depending on the number of players. So this is going to be a deduction information game where you're trying to steal money from the richest people around, and they will be your targets. So that being said, the game is going to change a lot between 1 to 6 players. There's a little bit of a different rule change. So that being said, we are primarily going to look at the 2 to 4 player version. A lot of the general game mechanic will be the same, but but how you operate with who you try to steal from and things like that might change. But that being said, I was able to try out the solo mode of this quite a bit, and I did really enjoy it. I think that it became much more of a deduction puzzle where you are working within the game and seeing what you can figure out versus trying to be more clever than your opponents and also trying to be sly. So I did think that the solo version of this was pretty satisfying, but that being said, we're going to take a look at the 2 to 4 player version. Now, here in Thieves of Eldris, you see that all of these unsuspecting people are here in town, and they are all here with their coin purses, and we are trying to steal from them. So here at the beginning of the game, in a 2 to 4 player game, you're going to start off with 3 cards. Now, of those 3 cards, you're able to take a look at them. So here we have the Wizard, which is over here. We have the Druid, which is right here, and we also have the Brawler, which is going to be up here. So you can see that all of these cards with the foiled back represent a card that is here in the town. So at the beginning of the game, you'll choose who you want to be your cut purse, who your thief is going to be. And looking around at this, honestly, I also love the rainbow of this. So let's have our Druid be our cut purse. Now, I am going to leave this face up over here for us, but just know that no other players would know this. This would be secret, and it's only face up because I want to show you in the preview. Now, these other 2 cards are going to become your targets. These are the only people that you are trying to steal from. So you are trying to get orthogonally adjacent to them so that you are then able to steal from their coin purse. So we are the Druid here, and we are trying to either get to the Wizard or the Brawler, and the Wizard isn't too far away. So on your turn, you are going to roll 3 dice. So we'll roll those 3 now. And we got 2 of the purple scroll symbols and 1 of the green fist. Now, depending on the symbols you have, that's what you are able to swap around here and maneuver on the board. Now, that's not really great for us, especially if we're trying to get over here toward our Wizard, but we may be able to actually get up near our Brawler. Now, that being said, another thing that you're able to do, because we rolled doubles, is activate special abilities. So each of these are going to have a certain ability that triggers depending on what you rolled. So for example, this one is switch the location with any 2 of the same color. So we are able to switch the location of any 2 with the same color, and actually, I think that may be great for us if we actually switch our Wizard and our Warlock. Now, the thing about using an ability like this is that it's giving information to all of the other players. They know that probably something that you want to do is going to affect one of these cards, but if you are able to steal from the Wizard this round anyway, it doesn't really matter. So we'll choose to swap both of these with our ability before moving on. And again, you normally wouldn't get an ability unless you rolled 3 dice of the same type. So because we have this here, we are able to do that ability. And then you are able to move each of those symbols. So for example, we are able to move a purple, and a green, and we're trying to maneuver that to get everyone a bit closer here to our Druid. So for one of our purple movements, we will just simply move ourselves over to here. We are now closer to our Wizard. And then after that, we will use our green to move this Brawler down to here. Now, something else that we'd be able to do is move another purple, but we're set up pretty well. So something you might want to do is to try to confuse your opponents and move something around, and you might just hope that it will get you something lucky because you are going to be drawing 2 new targets after this. So we'll choose to swap those 2 just to move the board around a bit more. So now it would be your cut phase when you are able to steal from your targets. Lucky us, we are next to the Wizard and the Brawler, and depending on where those townsfolk are standing, you're going to get a certain number of coins. So for example, if they were here in the corners, you would be able to steal $2 from them. Anyone that is here in the center, you are only stealing $1, and anyone that is on an edge but not a corner is going to award $1.50. So there are half coins here, and you are able to do that. So if we have our Druid currently steal from these 2, we would be gaining $1 here and $1.50 here, meaning that we would take $2.50 for that turn. Now players are trying to steal up to 8 coins. The first player to get 8 coins wins. However, you don't want to be exposing yourself. So to finish what was happening here, we would steal from both of them, and then both of these cards would flip over. Now that's pretty clear that the druid was the one that was stealing that turn because of the orientation. If it had been something like this, then it's possible that it could have been the barbarian or the druid, but because it was a setup like this, the druid is kind of showing off exactly who they are, and perhaps taking both of those coins might not be worth it on that turn. But what you would do is flip both of these over, you would then discard these because they've already been used, and you would draw 2 new targets from the deck. So our new targets would be the Light Priest or the Artificer. Now, players want to be really careful not to reveal who they are too early in the game because there's also a reveal action. So players are able to be orthogonally adjacent to who they believe someone's character is and choose to do a reveal. They would then tap that character and say who they think it is, and then that person has to truthfully answer if they are them or not. Now, if they are that person, they would have to discard their card, give the other person $1, and you would gain $2 from the bank. So that's a way for you to gain even more money faster, so you don't really want to reveal who you are because that may give your opponents a leg up on the game because they're able to make money off of you. Now, players have a token where they're able to reroll the dice once per game as well, and you are able to recharge this if you roll doubles. So if you roll doubles, instead of using the special ability, you would have to forego the ability, but you are able to flip this back over to be able to use it again, but this gives you a bit more flexibility. Now, as the game goes on, as people start leaving when they are stolen from, their symbol is still in play, so you are able to for example, move this green card around with the same card rules when you are moving these, and that's how you are able to get access to all of the different targets that you need throughout the game. And as I stated, the first player to 8 coins will win. In Thieves of Eldris, players are going to have a fast-paced deduction game where you're going to try to figure out who you think the other thieves are and try to move toward your targets as quickly as possible. Now, because people start leaving once they're stolen from, they're going to start moving around the board, clogging up different areas, but you're going to want to move around your targets to make them worth more money at the end of the game. Now, that being said, as I said, this game does change a lot depending on the number of players. For a 5 to 6 player game, the targets are actually public, so everyone knows who players are working toward, and in solo mode, there's just a lot more information that you are able to track a lot within the board, and it's very, very calming in my opinion. So this has been Thieves of Eldris, but before we go, we're going to take a look at crits and tricks. Alright, so now what you have set up in front of you is going to be a 4-player game of crits and tricks. Crits and Tricks is going to be a trick-taking game, but it's going to give you a bit of an RPG spin on it, and you're going to see exactly what I mean in a moment. Now, looking at the board, just note that this is a player screen where normally this would keep everything secret from all of the other players because you are rolling dice and then using those dice, and it's also a handy little cheat sheet that you are able to use, but that being said, I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want any secrets on the board, and I just wanted you to be able to know that normally a player would have this in front of them. All players would have their own screen, but that being said, for the sake of the preview, I took all of the screens away. Now, in Crits and Tricks, players are going to start with a deck that is made up depending on the number of players. So, depending on the number of players, you'll have certain sets and certain copies of the cards within the sets. But that being said, we are currently playing with Rogues, Barbarians, Wizards, and Bards because Bards are always played with. So, all of the players here currently have 8 cards in their hands, and we're going to be playing a classic trick-taking game. Now, in trick-taking, players will take turns going in order, playing different cards from their hand, typically having to follow suit of the lead suit unless they don't have it or are able to break suit. So that's generally what is going to be happening, but this game is going to be played over the course of 3 rounds, and whoever is able to accumulate the most money will be able to win the game. So at the beginning of each round, players are going to draft out these different quests, and after you have 4 quests available, you will discard one, and then you'll have 3 available for you to work toward. Now, these quests are going to award points for you in money. So for example, this one is Assassinate, win a trick where you used sneak attack and it would give you $1. Or you have Primal, win a Barbarian trick with a D6 or a D8 and you would get $3.50. And Initiative, win the first trick, which would get you $3 as well. So you can see that these are the 3 things that this player is working toward, probably trying to start off with winning the first trick right off the bat. Now there are also the Barkeep challenges, and these are going to score at the end of every round. So for example, this one is win tricks equal to the value of one of your dice, and you would gain $3. $10. So that's another way that players are going to be working toward money to try to win the game. Now, the cards that players have in their hands are all going to be the different suits, which are different classes, but you can see that none of them have numbers because you have your dice available. So before the game would actually begin, once the round is set up, players would roll their dice, and that is going to represent the numbers that they have available to assign to their different cards. So here we rolled a 1, 7, 2, 4, 8, and 12. So those are the different numbers that are going to represent the cards in our hand. Now you might have noticed that we have 6 dice, but 8 cards in our hand, because you are also able to play up to 2 cards for their crit ability. Now the crit ability is going to be the ability at the bottom of the card, meaning that 6 of your cards you're going to play normally out with your different dice, and then 2 cards throughout each round you are going to be able to use these special abilities. So just to give you an example of what those abilities might look like, here we have the wizard with transmute, swap die with one played previously. So that's a way for you to use your stronger die again, for example the 12 over here. The barbarian ability is rage, adjust your die plus or minus 1 to 3. So you're able to also adjust dice to have them be a bit stronger within the trick. Another thing that you are able to do is use your rogue, which has sneak, skip yourself in turn order and go last. So that's a way for you to kind of wait and see what other players are going to play before you choose to respond to it. And then finally there's also Bard, which is also played with, that has improvise. Reroll your current die up to 2 times. So that's a way that you're going to be able to re-roll your current die to use it for something better. And again, you're going to be playing 6 of these cards throughout the different rounds. Now, at the beginning of the game, players are going to roll d20s to see who would play first. But after that round, whatever player is ahead is going to be the one to lead the first trick of the next round. Additionally, after the first round, whatever player is behind is going to be able to look through the barkeep abilities and choose which one they want to be available, including previously discarded ones. So whoever is doing the poorest is able to adjust this. As you can see, there are other ones available that you are able to choose how you want things to score for that round as well, hopefully meaning that they are able to catch up. Now for this first player here, where they have a few things that they're trying to do, and they have a pretty good die roll, they may choose to try to go for both this primal quest as well as initiative. So initiative is win the first trick, and the safest thing for them to do would be to use this 12 here, but they also have win a barbarian trick with a d6 or d8. So they could try to do both of those as once if they played their barbarian card and used this 8 that they rolled on their d12. So they are able to do that, and then they're able to supplement it with another barbarian card as their crit ability to add +3 to it. So they would be able to make this an 11, hoping that other players with their d20s aren't able to beat this particular trick, because that would gain them 6.5 coins right off the bat. Now, once players have a handle of the game, they're also able to change out the different classes that you're playing with and those crit abilities that you're going to be able to use. So, for example, we have our Paladin here, and their ability is you win ties on this trick. So that's a way that you're going to be able to win ties. And our other one is Druid, which is you can force the player to reroll all of their dice. So if they had a really good turn, you could spend your crit ability to force them to reroll everything. Now, one other major difference in the trick taking in crits and tricks is that depending on the suit that you lead with, you'll want to win in different ways. So for example, barbarians do want to win by brute strength, which is why they want the highest total number value. So if you do lead with a barbarian, anyone else who plays either a barbarian or a bard is trying to play the highest number that they have. That being said, the other suits that you lead with may require different things. For example, rogues are the opposite of barbarians, and they want to be sneaky and not noticed, so they want the lowest value instead. A 1 will win with the rogues over any higher number, so the rogues are trying to go for the lowest instead. On top of that, wizards want the value equal or closest to 5. So the wizards are trying to stay truly in the middle, closest to 5, and then you'll be able to win that trick. Then the paladins want the highest value and matches the lead die size. So the paladins are looking not only to have the highest value, but to match the die that was led with for that trick. Now, druids are a little bit different where they want the second highest. There's something that is working toward a higher number, but they want you to have the second highest number in the trick instead. And then finally, bards, the win condition matches that of the suit that is declared. So bards are a little bit of a wild, where currently in this game they are playing with barbarians, rogues, and wizards. So if you do lead with a bard, you would have to choose one of those three classes to be the one you're choosing to apply to that bard. So you can see in crits and tricks there are a lot of choices that players are going to have. They have the dice that they roll and which numbers they choose to use where, and the different suits that are led and how those suits are going to score. You're always working toward these quests because that's where the real money is. You want the money from the Barkeep challenge as well, but the money that you actually are going to earn toward victory at the end of the game is going to be these different quests. Now again, players are going to play this over 3 different rounds, and after those 3 rounds you're going to see who was able to make the most money out of all of their tricks. Again, this challenge may change round after round. Whoever is in the lowest with the amount of loot that they have is going to be able to choose, so this is going to change, and players are also going to draw new quests when a new round begins. So you're going to play this over the course of 3 rounds, and once you want to, you are able to change in and add in different classes as well, keeping in mind that they have their crit ability, as well as how they score when you are playing them as the lead card. Overall, the Twisted Realms series is giving us 3 very fast-paced games that have great production quality and all tie into each other because it feels like the same world. You're working within these different classes and they're doing different things. For example, bards are doing something throughout all of these games, so there is that tie-in as well where you can see the different games all came from the same place. Now that being said, they also provide different player counts depending on what you're doing. Crits and tricks can go from 1 to 4. We also have our Thieves of Eldris, which goes up to 6, and Tug of Roar, which is specifically for 2 players. So depending on the number of people that you have coming over to your house, you have a lot of different options for what you're able to show players as well. Now this has been a preview by Inside Up Games. You can check out the link down below for their Kickstarter, which is now live, to see everything that they have planned. I've been Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel. I'll see you next time. Bye!